At 8:30 on the morning of June 6, 1944, Lieutenant General Omar Bradley stood on the bridge of the heavy cruiser USS Augusta and stared through binoculars blurred by salt spray. What he saw unfolding on the coast of France looked less like the beginning of victory and more like the collapse of everything he had promised his men. 8 miles away, Omaha Beach was choked with smoke and fire. Bodies drifted in the surf. Landing craft burned at the waterline. Soldiers who had survived the crossing lay pinned behind twisted steel obstacles, unable to move, cut down by relentless German machine gun fire that had not paused since dawn. Bradley had assured these men that naval guns and aerial bombardment would smash the German defenses before the first boot touched French sand. He had told them they would meet demoralized, second-rate troops. Now, as reports streamed in, more than 2,000 Americans were already dead or dying. Standing there, the general commanding U.S. ground forces considered something no one wanted to imagine. Evacuation. Pull the survivors off Omaha. Redirect the next waves to Utah Beach or into the British sector. Admit that the American assault had failed before it truly began. What Bradley could not see from his ship was that amid the chaos on that beach, a 51-year-old general with a bad heart and a walking cane was about to change the course of the day. From the very beginning, many British leaders had doubted the Americans. Field Marshal Alan Brooke, chief of the Imperial General Staff, kept a private diary throughout the war. In its pages he recorded his thoughts about Churchill, strategy, and the American allies whose entry into the conflict had saved Britain from near defeat. Brooke respected American industry. The factories of Detroit and Pittsburgh poured out tanks, aircraft, and ammunition in quantities Germany could not hope to match. But American soldiers were another matter. In his view, they lacked the hard combat experience British troops had gained in North Africa, Sicily, and Italy. American generals, he believed, did not yet understand the full weight of the German war machine. This skepticism was not rooted in malice. It was born of memory. Britain had watched France collapse in 6 weeks in 1940. It had fled Dunkirk with its back to the sea. It had lost Singapore and countless other strongholds to enemies who moved faster and hit harder than expected. Caution had become instinct. The Americans, with their confidence, their abundance, and their soldiers who had never faced a full German division in open battle, seemed dangerously optimistic. Winston Churchill shared these concerns. Even in February 1944, just months before the invasion, he questioned the entire operation. Why attack the most heavily fortified coastline in the world? Why not Norway, the Mediterranean, the Balkans, anywhere but northern France? The British preferred to wear Germany down through bombing, peripheral campaigns, and by letting the Soviets bleed the Wehrmacht in the east. Only when German strength was exhausted, they believed, should the Allies risk a cross-channel assault. The Americans disagreed. General George Marshall wanted concentration of force at the decisive point. Hit Germany where it hurt most. End the war quickly. Stop the killing. This fundamental disagreement shaped every detail of invasion planning. The British wanted more time and certainty. The Americans wanted action. It was Stalin, at the Tehran Conference in late 1943, who broke the deadlock by demanding a firm invasion date. Churchill, outnumbered, reluctantly agreed. As June approached, doubts remained. Would American troops stand under fire? Would American generals make sound decisions when plans collapsed? Would young men from Iowa, Texas, and California take a fortified beach against hardened German veterans? June 6th would answer those questions. The alliance itself was uneasy. British officers had been fighting since 1939. They had endured defeat, evacuation, and grinding campaigns. American officers had entered the war later, and even their veterans were considered green by British standards. This gap bred friction. British officers sometimes treated Americans as pupils. Americans often resented the tone. The alliance was real, but so were its tensions. Bernard Montgomery embodied those contradictions. He respected Eisenhower but believed he understood ground warfare better than any American. Bradley felt the strain, later writing that Montgomery made him feel like a poor country cousin. Yet Montgomery also toured American camps, speaking directly to soldiers, and the troops responded enthusiastically. He recognized something powerful in them: belief. They had crossed an ocean to fight for a land they had never seen. The question was whether belief would survive the first bullets. At Omaha Beach, almost every assumption proved wrong. Intelligence believed the area was defended by second-rate troops. Instead, the veteran German 352nd Infantry Division had moved in months earlier. Bombers missed their targets due to cloud cover. Naval bombardment was too brief. Amphibious tanks sank in rough seas, drowning their crews. When the first waves hit the beach, American infantry arrived without armor, without cover, and facing far stronger defenses than expected. The killing began instantly. Machine guns tore through landing craft ramps. Men drowned under the weight of their gear. Others reached the sand only to find no craters, no shelter, only fire sweeping every inch of ground. Entire companies were destroyed in minutes. Survivors hugged the sand as the tide rose behind them and German bunkers loomed above. 6 hours after landing, Americans had advanced barely 10 yards. Into this nightmare stepped Brigadier General Norman Cota. He had opposed a daylight landing from the start, arguing that surprise was essential. He had been overruled. Now, standing upright where others crawled, Cota moved through fire as if bullets could not touch him. He rallied stunned soldiers, shouted orders, and demanded movement. When he encountered pinned-down Rangers, he famously told them, "Then Rangers, lead the way." Cota did not freeze when the first man through a breach was shot dead. He walked through himself. Men followed. Small groups began climbing the bluffs. They no longer followed the plan. It was gone. They followed leaders who refused to accept death on the sand. By afternoon, destroyers risked running aground to provide direct fire support. Naval shells tore into German positions at point-blank range. Slowly, painfully, Omaha Beach became a beachhead. At Utah Beach, a different kind of leadership appeared. Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., 56 years old, arthritic, walking with a cane, landed with the first wave. Pushed ashore miles from the intended landing site, he surveyed the scene and calmly declared, "We'll start the war from right here." His decision saved hundreds of lives. He personally reconnoitered under fire and directed incoming troops. 5 weeks later, he died of a heart attack, never knowing he had been awarded the Medal of Honor. The British watched all of this closely. Omaha horrified them, but it also changed them. The Americans did not fight by the book. Their attack was chaotic, improvised, often brutal. But when logic said they should break, they did not. Green troops became veterans in a single morning. The stubborn refusal to quit shocked even seasoned British observers. German defenders felt it too. They inflicted catastrophic losses, and still the Americans came. Ammunition ran low. Morale cracked. If Omaha could not be held, nothing could. Rommel had warned them, if the Allies got ashore, the war was lost. They got ashore. By nightfall, the invasion had succeeded. At terrible cost, but it had succeeded. The alliance had been forged in fire. British skepticism gave way to respect. Montgomery personally decorated Cota. Brooke recorded admiration alongside criticism. Churchill praised the Americans sincerely. The war moved on. Normandy broke open. Paris was liberated. Germany fell. But June 6th remained a dividing line. Before it, Americans were doubted. After it, they were equals. Norman Cota rarely spoke of that day. His obituary barely mentioned it. But the men who followed him remembered the general who walked upright through machine gun fire. They told the story so it would not be lost. The crosses and stars of David at the Normandy American Cemetery stand above Omaha Beach as silent proof of what was done there. The beach had to be taken. Against every expectation, it was. The British doubted the Americans. Then they watched them fight. And after that, whatever doubts remained were tempered by something stronger. Respect.